Yes, today let's see how you can set up your custom tactics in FC25, the area of the game which was massively changed, and we have different tools and ways of setting up our game plans. And I have seen many players don't know how to set up custom tactics. And not also that the majority can try, but don't know the right formation, plus setting up the correct effective player roles. Let's begin on how you can set up the most balanced formation for 4-2. If you want cheap and safe FC25 coins, visit IGGM.com and build a strong squad to start FC25 journey strongly and leave your opponents behind. Use the discount code DRFC for 5% off. Link in the description. So when you're in your squad playing Ultimate Team, which I think many of you play, after selecting all your players, make sure that no player is playing out of position. Every player has to be placed in his position. Then after pushing the left analog to press the L3 button, accessing this menu, select Team Management. Reaching this page, press right on your D-pad until you get the New Tactics section and select it. So here you're setting up a new tactic, which means you have to name it to distinguish it from other tactics. This is important because you can set up different tactics all with different names. Then you can switch from one game plan to another in the middle of the match, which I will show you how to do it later in the video. So here I name mine 4-4-2, and the game plan will be named. Then select Edit Tactic. Reaching this page, here leave the first option on Custom, because you're setting up your own tactics. There are plenty of suggested tactics, but that's not why we are here. After, head to the Formation option and press Triangle. Here varieties of different 29 formations are listed, but today we are using the 4-4-2 flat. After choosing it, you press X to select it. Moving down to the build-up style, since the game is new and we haven't figured out the meta. Let's stick with the basics. Leave it on Balanced. This better because it's a mixture of possession and counterattacks. Then the defensive approach. Hear me, I defend aggressively sometimes. That's why I go with 60, but if you want to adjust it manually, you press Triangle. Here, the higher you go, the more aggressive nature of your team, and the lower you go, the more defensive nature of your team. I recommend 60 for those who can't press aggressively, but if you can go for 61 now, it's not that risky. Now we go on the most sensitive part. Here, make sure you have no player playing out of position. What you set up here impacts your player on the pitch, both offensively and defensive. Beginning with fullbacks as usual. So we have the role option first, then the focus option second. You can also switch the view and see how your player will position with the ball and without the ball, according to the role you have given him, by flicking the right analog left or right. Setting up the roles is not enough. You have to also use some IQ as the player playing the game. That's why they introduced FC IQ in this campaign. So the logic with the fullbacks, you have to understand the most defensive fullback and offensive. These two fullbacks of mine, DeMarco is more offensive than Llorente because of pace, so I set Llorente on fullback on his role, which means he will most of the time stay back while attacking, holding a defensive line. And then as the fullback, I wanted to focus on defend. Here he joins the center backs to form a back three. I'm going to explain how and when he does that. So, DeMarco, the more offensive fullback, I give him the role of wing back. Here he will sometimes make those forward runs automatically when the opportunity arises. And then his focus as the wing back, I leave him on Balanced. He can choose to stay forward even if I'm out of possession to put on the press, but he will most of the times drop back into the defense as fast as possible to get back in position. So here is the science now. When I'm attacking, especially on this side, as this wing back gets forward, Llorente will join the center backs to form a back three. This reduces the risk of counterattacks. Now the midfielders, here it's better to have one who can get forward and one who is good at defending. Bruno Fernandes, I set him on box-to-box because his attack-minded midfielder than McAllister. This means Bruno have to operate between two boxes. He joins the attack and also comes back and defend. Then I leave his focus on Balanced. Here he will most of the times cover the central area of the pitch. Then McAllister, I set him on holding as his role. Here he rarely joins attack, which means most of the times he will remain behind and guard the defense. The focus of the holding midfielder, I set him on defend. Here you could just position himself to a better safe passing positions, but he will still focus on defending. So the science here, as you see, I position the holding midfielder who will stay behind most of the times of the side of the most attacking fullback, which means if this wing back is caught out of position, you can use this midfielder to cover up the space on the wing because he most of the time stay back. Or more effective as your team forms the back three, you will have to use the nearest center back position wide to cover up that space if McAllister is not able to do so. then leaving the most offensive midfielder to join attack, positioned on the side of the fullback who stays back. Then the wingers. This right midfielder Sancho, I give him the role of wide midfielder. Here he most of the times position himself on the line, and he's a good option if you need to counterattack in some situations because he will be positioned wide and free. Then his focus as the wide midfielder is to defend. Since this midfielder gets forward, this wide player doesn't fully commit to attack, though you can trigger him manually to fully attack and reach the final third. Then left midfielder. Here we have Hazard. His role is inside forward, and he even have ++ on that role, which means he's more effective in that position. The inside forward, most of the times, he will cut inside. So here can create space for himself, where he can find those decisive passes towards the opponent's goal. I choose Hazard for this role, because he can get into positions where I can take finesse shots, and he has good pace. He makes good run in behind the opponent's defense. So when he cuts inside, sometimes drags the opponent's fullback out of position, giving this fullback opportunity to exploit that space for dangerous passes. Then his focus, I leave it on balanced. Here he rarely come back and defend. He stays forward and is more of getting behind for long passes rather than coming short. Then here I have Ronaldo and Watkins as strikers. I set Ronaldo on advance forward because his ++ in that role. Then his focus on attack. Here he concentrates on scoring goals. Then the other striker, I set him also on advance forward and focus on complete. So when attacking on this side of the pitch, he will most of the times drift wide for passing options. So if you see that, don't hesitate to take that pass. After setting up your game plan, you can save it, even copy the code of the game plan, such that you don't always go through this long process of setting up. You just input the code and the game plan I set. Then if you have different players, you can adjust. You can set these game plans as many as you want, such that when you get into the match, you press left on the D-pad, then learn which direction button is another game plan. For example, here I want to select this one. I just press the direction shown on that formation. Then you will receive this notification that tactical change is in process. It takes some time for the tactic to kick in, or if the ball gets out of play. You can change as many tactics as you want if set them. So that's it, guys, for today. We have a lot to cover in FC25, but soon we shall catch up. If you liked the video, thanks for watching.